Accelerator programs can be so helpful for startups. They can connect you with the right people, with other founders, potential investors, and it is so much easier to acquire clients and partnerships. In today's episode, we are going to explore how to find the right accelerator program and how to apply so that they accept you. And we have a very experienced entrepreneur, Valdis Sprogis, who was part of 4 different accelerator programs, and 2 of them are very, very well known worldwide. With those accelerator programs, you can speed up the process of learning and connecting with the right people dramatically. Valdis, could you please tell me a bit about your current project and your previous experiences as entrepreneur?
Yeah, sure. Right now, I'm a co-founder in a company called Hovi. It's a Finnish-based SaaS company that enables other businesses to build digital trust ecosystems for other businesses to build infrastructure or technical setup where they can verify either identity, business information, or proofs of any sort. My prior experience is that I've also gone through trying to build a company in the last 3.5 years, and that's also where a lot of the accelerator experience comes in that I've gone through, and basically where I've learned and gotten quite a few personal and business related developments that I now apply in the current company that I'm working at.
Could you please tell me a bit about your experience with accelerator programs and especially which kind of advantages you were able to get from them?
Yes, accelerator programs were a vehicle to get an investment either from them directly or maybe to be considered for pitching in front of the investors. What was the most important learning is it's all about the network that you learn and you get at the end of the day, both other founders, of course, and potential investors and advisors and mentors. But on a personal level, for me, what was more important is also the knowledge and the new learnings that I got from mentors, because in some of those programs, you got exceptional mentors that taught me something that you would probably usually pay a lot of money to get. So that was extremely valuable.
Yeah, it can be quite expensive and time consuming to try everything out yourself and try to figure it out from scratch. Could you please tell me which kind of connections you got that were helpful to your business and to yourself?
I think it was specifically some of the founders that I met that I'm still in touch with and I'm talking to as well regularly, and also some of the mentors that I've approached even after the programs on a few questions that they were able to answer. And I think this was extremely beneficial. Of course, it's just also the human relations aspect, right? It should never be about thinking that there's favors to gain from that person. It's more about, is that a cool person that I want to be in touch with? And then the other things are going to come out because you keep in touch. It's like having basically your friend who is somewhere globally in another place in the world who could still maybe meet up somewhere if your paths cross. If you maintain that relationship as like the friend relationship, not the, I want to gain something from this relationship aspect, then things are going to be just fine.
Entrepreneurship can be quite lonely, even if you have a business partner, but it feels like other people oftentimes don't understand what you're doing and you are so passionate about that and you want to talk with other people, not just with your business partner. And if you have other founders whom you can talk with, it can be so inspiring and can be also very motivating.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's one thing that accelerators basically give you, like a bigger pool of like-minded people that you can chat with. And most of the people in those groups actually are quite open to, if you're going to just write them in a general chat or group or ping someone specifically, say, hey, I want to talk about this. I have this problem that I need to explore, or how are you doing this in your company? Or do you have any advice? They are usually quite open to talk about that. I've yet to encounter where somebody would say, no, I don't want to talk, or unless, I get something from it, I'm talking to you. No, nobody does that usually.
I like this approach of not just focusing on what you will get back. If you are open-minded and if you just enjoy this process of interacting with other founders, investors, you suddenly have much less pressure on your shoulders and you will be surprised probably which kind of advantages they can come out of those conversations. Sometimes the one person that you thought, okay, it's neither potential client nor investor, but he knows someone who can help you.
Yep, absolutely. Absolutely.
Any concrete examples of where you got some valuable connection or advice for your businesses?
Advice as well. And I think one of the ways how we got into one of the accelerators was also through a referral that I had from a person while I was in a different accelerator before that, because during that accelerator, I was also in this one kind of program to learn more about the VC space and VC investment. And there was also some assignments and tasks, and there was also this networking part. So I basically got to network with that person while I was in this side project involved during the nighttime while I was in the accelerator. And that eventually was the person who referred me to the next accelerator where we got investment from. It's a 5D chess move, but it wasn't intentional. That's just to show you that there might be very unlikely circumstances when you think of it in that moment of time where you meet a person who actually plays a very pivotal role in your life a year later. The key point here is, do you maintain relations with that person and basically talk with them? You might meet 50 people maybe, but you keep in touch maybe with 2, but that's okay, because maybe those 2 are the ones that eventually turns out to decide a lot of fateful things in your life.
With platforms like LinkedIn, it's also easy to stay in touch with all of those 50 people. Maybe you have regular interactions, messaging and calls with a few of them, but at least the other 48 will see some of your posts. And when they speak with someone and think about you, they can also refer to you. And it's always like giving and taking. I had my own experience many years ago in 2009 when I was in Berlin. I was in a part of this Rocket Internet community, which is huge. And I found my business partner in this community. I found a few clients. Like 10 years later, they became my clients. And I found many interesting friends and inspiration. It was not an accelerator program, but it was a similar effect on my career. You mentioned that you found connection to get to a different accelerator program. And I can imagine that different accelerator programs have different requirements. So those 2 big famous accelerator programs that you were part of, they probably are much more difficult to join than the other smaller accelerator programs. Let's talk about the absolute minimum requirements for less popular accelerator programs.
It really depends. It's actually twofold. There might be even regional programs that require quite extensive applications. There was one that we did not eventually got selected for, but it was more for kind of a consulting advice and basically guidance in business and opening partnerships, not about investment. Their application process was quite extensive. So there were pretty much 8 pages and I think somewhere around 40 plus different questions. So you had to be very detailed at what you're building because they were interested in the technicalities, how it looks, because they wanted to make sure that they have the right people that could give you the consulting and the advice. But then there are others who are fine with accepting people who have a great idea, have something written down, let's say maybe a deck or a presentation, but they don't know how to execute it. So they have some concept of how this could run, but they don't know who's going to be the co-founder. Am I going to be the CEO or do more like the marketing things? Who's going to do the sales and how to do it? Should I just find some random people now and sell it? So there are programs who are like that, who can accept people who have idea as well. And you can find a co-founder during those programs. So Antler, for instance, offers one of those opportunities. You can go in there and find a co-founder basically there as well, even if you have a great idea, or maybe you just want to actually join a team and you have certain skills and qualities and experiences that are very valuable that would consider you as a candidate in that program where you would be basically entering a matchmaking to find a co-founder or find a team to join. So that's also a possibility. So it really depends. What do they provide as an accelerator when you review them? And then based on those general terms, what they usually have on the website, you can decide at that point, okay, can I apply if I just have an idea, or should I already have some sort of a working business running? And if you have ever questions, there's usually these people that are typically on the websites of those accelerators, or you can find them on LinkedIn, who are the kind of people to do the initial screening or review. So you can just write them directly and ask, I have this question that I'm not sure, is this the right thing, not the right thing? I have this and that already. Should I apply? Is it okay if I apply, or you don't consider these kind of applications? Or ask other founders who've gone through these programs, just again on LinkedIn, somebody, if you just can ask, hey, see, you've been in this program, a couple of questions we want to apply. Can you just spare 15 minutes to do? Usually people would be okay with that.
My freelancer is doing extensive research about those accelerator programs, and we are going to publish a detailed list in our community on masterfulhub.com so that people can save so much effort in doing this research. But of course, there are also local accelerator programs that are even easier to join. Could you tell me your experience about that?
Yeah, so depending on where you are in geographically, and I'm in Baltics, and one of the programs that I joined was also centered on Baltic startups. So you are more likely to get in there because they want to make sure that they prop up and support also the local founders. So whatever is your local geography, you basically look what's regionally available, and you have a higher likelihood of maybe joining those programs if you have already some sort of, especially if you have an established business running, then they would quite happily offer some help and, of course, support their ecosystem. That could be a good starting point. But like I said, there are some programs that are maybe, let's say, even regional or local, right, geographically speaking, but they are more focused on very specific type of startups that they want to take in that deal in certain categories. So they might have, in my experience, this one case, right, a very extensive application process. So it means that if, your, let's say, business is not to the point where it has some sort of tangible IP, for instance, or some sort of unique element that's patentable, you might even not get accepted because they're just simply not interested in helping these businesses because they think that this is a more complex category where founders need more help. If it's more like a SaaS or some regular sales business, there's plenty other options. A specialty business has more limited options to get support. So it could be that as well. So it really depends regionally as well what you're looking at. But yes, usually you can find a lot of programs locally if you just search for them.
Even if a founder wants to apply to one of those big famous accelerator programs like Y Combinator or 500 Startups Accelerator, it's probably might be a good idea for startups in the early stage to apply to maybe local programs or smaller, less known programs, because the requirements are oftentimes lower for those smaller programs, and they can already help you with optimizing your business, your idea, maybe even with some connections that can help you to apply to those more stricter accelerator programs.
That could be one thing. Also, regional accelerators and programs might provide you a small injection of money as well if they take you in or if you graduate from them successfully once you pitch there. Typically, those come with a very small equity stake, or maybe even sometimes could be no equity stake as well. So it means that you don't dilute your cap table so heavily. That means you got some little bit of money, you got some support, you got some help, maybe some clients. So you're maybe more favorably positioned in that sense, and you haven't lost too much of your company, so to speak, in dilution. And some of them also offer this thing called sweat equity, means that basically they give you a certain amount of help in terms of financial capacity, which you can expense as a company to get access to certain things. It means that they don't gain any stake maybe in the business specifically. Maybe they do. It depends on the terms. In our case, it wasn't one of the instances where we applied, but you get a little bit of money to maybe expense travel where you go and meet clients, or you go to conferences and expense the tickets, or buy some subscriptions to tools, programs, for instance, or maybe pay a consultant or advisor, or get some sort of a regulatory document in place and settled for that. And you can expense these things. So this is also quite important because some of those things, especially if you need compliance related things that you need to settle, they might be quite expensive. And early on, when you're just bootstrapping and trying to pool funds everywhere, it might be very expensive to suddenly say, oh, now it's going to cost 7,000-8,000 euros just to pay for settling some paperwork or some kind of regulatory details and nuances. Yeah, absolutely. That may be helpful as well. Is there a direct correlation when you go and apply again to a bigger accelerator as a startup? Maybe, but I haven't seen that play a big role. What you just gain is basically a bit more experience already, maybe what to expect, and maybe you're a bit more mature as a founder and as a business when you apply again because you've gone through some of these things.
If you have this experience as a startup who run through a smaller accelerator program, then it's a bit easier for you to apply for more stricter, more popular accelerator programs because you already know which steps to take. Is it what you
in a way, yes. At least you have certain expectations. You've gone through the process. You know what happens in that environment. So typically, with some exceptions, of course, depending on each program, the kind of concept is usually similar, what you go through there, because there's a timeline during which you go through the accelerator, certain months, there's certain program milestones that you go through. Either you get investment right away, or you have to pitch in so-called demo day, and then you maybe get investment or not, or you just get support throughout the program, but then you participate in certain sessions. The idea is similar, right? Either these going to be these regular classes or regular sessions, either these going to be some consulting hours, or these going to be some sort of building phases and pitching phases. So there's usually this kind of an element involved.
And then there is also this requirement of your motivation and involvement. Probably most of the time you should be willing to do entrepreneurship full-time. We are not talking about employment full-time, but really like intensive work on your entrepreneurship, on your startup. Because if you just do it as a part-time job or even like a hobby besides your full-time job, it probably will be difficult to get accepted by most of the accelerator programs. Is that correct?
Yeah, actually, some even at one point, either in the application form, quite often there already, and then maybe to reaffirm during the interview calls or selection calls, they actually ask that, are you full-time committed, are you not? Because they want to make sure, are you really into this, or this is just a fun hobby for you? And absolutely, you also have to understand that there's some implications in terms of your availability, even physically. So in one of the cases, like in Antler Nordics, we actually had to travel to Denmark and be there as my co-founder as well. So because it's an in-person program and there's a certain requirement of attendance that you have to be there and be present, right? So these are the things as well. So remote versus in-person matters as well. And of course, yeah, you're fully committed because you maybe think that it's possible to do it as a regular job, but actually when things start to rack up and you're 2-3 people team and everybody does 50 jobs, then that's usually not possible. So yeah, you might end up working more, but if you like that, then you're actually going to enjoy what you're doing more as well.
What is your perspective on solopreneurship versus having a team of founders in terms of applying for accelerator programs? Will they be treated differently? Do you have more chances in general with a business partner?
There's kind of two answers to this. One is, first of all, you need to consider, are the programs accepting solo founders as not? Because there are some programs that absolutely say you have to have a co-founder, right? And some where you can still apply, but they would encourage you highly once you are applied to actually find a co-founder, right? Or find founding team members at least. Second of all, right now there's been quite a lot of success where people have built in solo as well businesses, and even YC has accepted solo founders as well who are been very successful. But I would say it's definitely better if you have 2 people at least or 3 people in the team that have complementary skills, right? And then each can lift their own weight and do their own thing. Because if you imagine that it's a full-time fledged role, even with all the AI tools available right now, that you have to fulfill, let's say, 3 different functions with all the underlying things that you have to do in a company, let's say running a business, then the management as well, sales, technical side of things, all that. It's extremely difficult because you won't realize how quickly the 24-hour clock runs out and you need to sleep and eat at some point. So basically having a co-founder is better. And plus you have somebody to reflect ideas on. You keep each other in check as well. You have more this teamwork there as well. So I would say it's probably easier to do it in the team, but I wouldn't say that it's not possible if you do solo as well. It's just going to be a lot more difficult, of course.
I'm really glad that I have my business partner. They had some difficult times, and in those phases, it was so valuable to have someone to talk with. And oftentimes, after such conversations, it doesn't look that bad, the situation, because you are talking and getting a bit more objective perspective. And also with ideas, sometimes I tell him, okay, here I have this idea, and he has a different perspective from IT side. I have different perspective from marketing side. And then sometimes he disapproves that, which is good because it's much more difficult to implement technically. And sometimes I even realize that my idea is not good when just explaining it to him. And of course, with complementary skills, it's so valuable to build a startup. If you are an IT person, you oftentimes neglect marketing and sales and vice versa. And even if you hire some specialists, it's not enough because a founder has a different role. You cannot replace a founder usually with just a freelancer or employee because there is a different motivation and overview of the whole thing. Are there any red flags or any type of accelerator programs that founders should avoid?
In any case, I mean, when you you're entering a business relationship, let's put it this way, right? And when you do that, you have to do your own diligence, due diligence the same way kind of either other business or accelerator or VC would do a due diligence on you. So you review things internally online about them, ask from other people, founders who have participated in the program. If you have the chance to look at the terms and conditions, what are the ones on the website that they say, oh, we accept based on this and that, and this is what we provide. Maybe there are some dependencies as well that they state and list as well, that what happens after the program, for instance, right? That maybe there's a certain element where it says that they might still be able to invest in you 6 months after the program if you find investor, or you are maybe capped at the valuation when you raise the money and certain conditions kick in. So all these nuances might be worth exploring. Some of these are more internal contract-based things where you only see them once you get an official offer. And of course, as with any document, you don't have to sign it if you don't agree on it. But if you have questions and you get an offer, if you don't understand something, it's best to reach out to some people who know more about this, right? Either kind of the financial advisor or the legal advisor. Yeah, it might cost you some money. Of course, if you have a friend or a neighbor who is in that occupancy, then of course ask them and they can just do it for free for you as a good gesture. But otherwise, maybe it's even worth spending a little bit of money on that to make sure that you've covered all the aspects that are unclear. Of course, you can always also ask directly to those programs. Usually they are very fine or answering it and there's nothing about it. It's just these are their terms, simply how they work, right? So they're just going to answer the questions. But if there's something deeper that you want to investigate, understand, it's always better to get external advice that is not connected to any of these things. So it's as objective as possible.
How was it in your case with those 4 accelerator programs and maybe some programs that you didn't accept? How did you decide to join them or not to join them?
Yeah, in some of the cases, of course, we did the due diligence and understand what the programs are about. Like when we joined the 500 Eurasia program as well, that we knew more about that program. And then we got also referred by the connection that I met while I was in another program, and who told more about what kind of other startups they have referred and how they are connected with this. So that helped a lot as well. In one instance where we also considered and said no, the terms we didn't like, for instance, we read that the terms are not good eventually, or not favorable at that position where we were. And so we decided also to not accept that offer. So I think it's always like this, like similarly with an investment. If you like the terms, you go with it. And if you're not, even though everything's fine with maybe the investor, or in this case, Accelerator, you're happy with them, you know their program, just that some of the things don't align. And if they're non-negotiables, like if you kind of ask, hey, is this the only way how it is? And there's no flexibility on this or room to negotiate, and the answer is no. These are the terms, either you take them or leave them. Then you have to decide whether you take that route and accept that some of these things are not favorable to you, but you're going to go with it because there's other opportunity that you see, the network or future investment, or you say no and just live with the choice.
Did you let someone professional look at the terms and conditions?
In all our cases, I think once we actually asked a referral to kind of also, I think the same person that referred us asked a few more questions. Not so much maybe about the terms, but I think there are certain aspects of what those terms imply. So in a more generic sense. But in others, no, I think it was just a subjective discussion within the team. Hey, does that make sense? Do we think we go with it or not? And decided on our own.
I think if the Accelerator program has some reviews, people know about that, maybe it's even from government, like locally or popular, then it's probably less important to go through the terms and conditions. But if it's a private company and there's a few terms that you are not sure about, then it's probably a good idea to take legal advice, because it's not always clear for normal people, for non-legal people, what certain things mean and which implication they can have. It's a different language, even if you are perfect in this language, but the legal language it's not easy to understand. Yeah.
Yeah, no, for sure. It really depends. If the program is well wider known, or the company who runs it is more known globally, there's going to be a lot more information available, right? Like about YC or about 500 or about Antler. They're running these programs globally around different places, so you can easily find information about this as well, or plug and play, for instance, right? And So they are even regionally segmented as well. That's true. And something that is smaller than, you might need to literally ask the person directly who runs the program some specifics, or then ask people who have gone through it to get more data about it.
That's a good idea to ask people who have gone through that program. Do you have some ideas how you can find those people? So my idea would be to look on LinkedIn and see if they are connected.
Yeah, that's one thing. The other thing is that usually these, let's say, companies that have successfully gone through the accelerators, that usually the ones that where they end up with raising money, at least those that provide the opportunity to pitch during the acceleration and then get the money, they have also a portfolio, right? So that means that you go to their website, you can see all the companies that gone through this successfully, who raised the money. And when you open them, you can either, at least you find the name, the business description, the website. Maybe even you can see the founder there as well, at least who's the CEO, right? So again, either it's, like you said, you go to LinkedIn from there, or go to their website directly, look at the team, and basically, if you're connected, it's good. Not connected, you can still do the same as I mentioned earlier. Just write them a message, say, hey, I saw you got through a program. Congrats on graduating. Seems that you raised some money. Really cool business that you're running. Would like to ask some few questions because we want to apply as well. And I think you're the right person to do this. And if somebody sends you that kind of message, the likelihood of you saying, no, I will never talk to you is almost zero. You're going to say, okay, I can do it, but in 2 or 3 weeks time, whatever. And then you just simply say, okay, let's schedule something. Here's the link, and just book them on 15, 20 minutes. I think that's going to be fine.
Have you heard about really like scammy accelerator programs that are trying to just use those startups, maybe even some kind of a pyramid scheme or something like that?
Not maybe heard, but I had a funny experience with one example where we were thinking that they're actually a VC. They were supposed to be a VC according to their website and description and everything. And when we went to the call, it turns out that they're actually kind of a consulting accelerator, not in VC. So they don't directly invest, but they take you into some sort of like a program where they coach you and then they consider investment. But the whole setup was really weird. And even the call that we were on, it was not clearly explained how the program is going to be run. And then when we asked the questions like, okay, do you have some outline, some summary, or what's going to happen? How's the process? Who you select and so on? The generic answer was like, oh yeah, we decide which startups we want to work with and we take you in. And then 3 weeks, we're going to be doing here, this and that. And then we're going to see whether we can invest or find you someone to invest. That was really weird, and I'm quite lucky that we didn't go for it at that time, and we immediately saw between the lines that this is not going good. So these kind of things can happen. So yeah, be aware of, do a bit of a background search. When you find a name that's not popular or well known, make sure you try to find or locate as much information about them as possible, right? If there's very little about it, then that should already raise you some questions as to why. Maybe it's strictly regional, that could also be fine, but it still should be online available because they have nothing to hide and it's a legitimate business that they're running. There's no reason for them not to talk about this, right?
Let's talk about how to apply for those a bit more stricter programs, especially like in your case, big popular programs. How can the startup increase the chances of being accepted by such programs?
In the kind of bigger or well-known programs, it's of course better that you already have some traction. That's first off, right? So the likelihood that you're going to get in when there's nothing going on in your business, or you just have an idea made in Canva or on a deck, it's going to be slimmer because you're basically getting a lot of value in terms of exposure, in terms of connections, in terms of also not current, but also future investments. So let's say having a label or a name, should I say, on your startup's resume or history of your startup as you've been through YC or you've been to 500 actually means a lot as well. It carries the weight. So that's why you would likely should be more prepared in terms of the traction and how far your business is when you apply to them. And selection process there focuses on the element of either submitting the application and then extends going through an interview. Some interviews are more extensive, but basically that's where it's decided whether they take you in or not. If it's smaller ones, regionally ones, or ones which are more favorable to accepting the solo founders or founders with just an idea, then for instance, it might be enough if you explain what you build, your enthusiasm, your energy, and then in the interviews, they see what kind of person you are. So they select you based on those attributes.
What do you think those programs like Y Combinator, 500 startups and Antler, in which kind of stage do they prefer startups that have already some clients, proof of concept, or is it depends on the quality of the idea or of the team?
This is subjective because it really depends. It might be the idea, what's timely in the market and what's interesting to them. It might be also the person. For instance, if Antler accepts people who have great idea, who want to join the team as well. So it might be about that. In that case, it's going to be solely about that person, of course. How do they see how the person fits into that cohort of the program? If it's more about the business itself, then it depends how far you are, what they think they could provide you in terms of help, consulting, exposure. It also could be based on the regionality. Let's say that they're focused more on the startups that are in specific geography and globally, or they are just focused on exceptional people and ideas combined, like YC, for instance, does and looks at them, right? So it really depends. Some are more regionally focused where they say, okay, if you're incorporated locally in this country, then we want to make sure that we support you as a local business, that you branch out globally as well. If you're an Estonian or Lithuanian-based company, that there are accelerators, let's say the plug and play in Lithuania, where they want to see that you're an incorporated company in there and they help you span and grow globally. So it's about regionality of the business. So there's multiple elements. And that's why you need to consider what kind of company or person you are, what you want to do.
Let's focus on Antler, for example, and maybe 500 startups on this particular accelerator programs. What do you think they prefer and which kind of requirements they have?
Yeah, so in my experience and how these programs are run, they're quite different. For instance, in 500 Eurasia program, if they accept you in the accelerator, you already get an investment right away. At least in our case, that was true. And that means that once you get in there, you already have a financial contribution and capital injection in your business that helps you. Plus you get the mentorship and guidance. And then you also present in the demo day, and then you have ability to talk to investors as well during the program. Whereas, for instance, in Antler, you actually go through the stages where you present the business and have to pitch in the demo day to get an investment. So it's more about you being coached, advised, and guided to that point where you successfully land the investment from them. That's why you can join there as a solo founder or join a team to be considered, or to be pairing up with somebody or developing your idea while you're there as well, which is a great opportunity for you.
So the first step is to apply for those programs is to fill out their form. How can you increase your chances there? Do you have some advice?
Of course, standard is the form. You can send it and apply. That's what everybody does. And if you have a connection or referral, or somebody has gone through it and can vouch for you, that also helps a lot, because that means that there's a trust element established between the person who refers you, those who run the program. That's an easier conversation for them to have. And maybe your application might be reviewed quicker as well. And the other likelihood, a better chances in the program is that if you have already had successful experience as a founder, for instance, if you're a repeat founder, then it also helps a lot. Or even if you build solo something, that means that you have this business acumen, you understand how things run. So that means that there's more you can do yourself already. And then maybe you need only more higher level advice to kind of scale a business or to enter specific markets. They can curate based on those interviews that they have you. They might figure out that they can curate this support or mentors specific way that help your business. Application is one thing. If you have a referral, that always helps.
And with the application itself, it's similar like applying for a job, for a good job, or for a investment. And there you can also get some external help, some specialists who can look over it and try to give you advice to how to optimize it. Maybe you have also some general advice how to present your business and yourself.
Yeah, so in the application form, I would say, think about it this way, that you're filling it out as if you would be sending information or talking to a potential investor as well. If you consider it as serious or as important, then you're going to be in a good place. There are certain things that you need to explain there about yourself, or about some interesting projects you've been running, or something you have achieved recently that's amazing that you can talk about now, to kind of know more about you. Usually that's more of the deciding factor. Of course, it's good if you have a good pitch deck about your business, but it doesn't necessarily have to be very detailed. It has to be interesting enough and topical enough, and also catchy enough, like an investor would look at, to basically warrant that call. If you apply regularly to a form, you're going to have a screening call in the beginning where they're going to find out whether it's a good fit for their program, and then they're going to push through the next stages. The first one is usually the introduction. That's the human factor. So there's really hard to give their advice, because it's simply just, if it kind of clicks, then you go through. But then in the next stages, it's really going to depend on the program. So for instance, in some programs, they might be very, let's say not more strict, but more detailed. They really want to ask, how's the business been running? What are you doing? How are you entering the market? How are you getting the clients? What were the drawbacks? Have you had some feedback? Do you have some churn? What's your burn rate? All these kind of the same things, right? Because they want to consider if you're an investable company. And if there's doubts, you might even have another call before they say yes or no to make sure that this is strategically aligned with them. Do you understand what you want to accomplish? And can they be enough of help actually to get you where you would like to get, and actually use that a good business relationship that they want to enter as well, right? So treat it the same way, I would say, as you would potentially would talk to an investor as well. But as usual, be yourself, right? If something doesn't align and you don't like something about that, or you have certain opinions about things, it's fine to express that. So just because it's all about the person and your character at the end of the day, right? Because it's early stage startups. Unless you're a really successful business that's running and we're looking just at the business side of things, then usually it's all about the team in combination with what you're doing that decides.
I can imagine that the idea itself can make quite a difference. If it's an idea that is already popular and some businesses are already doing it, that can be a negative factor. Or if it's a tough to implement idea for a small business, that could be also a negative factor. And on the other hand, from my personal perspective, I like if an idea, like in your case, is very specific for a big enough pain point of a specific target audience. And of course, some of those programs, even if the idea might be mediocre, they might think, okay, we can optimize this idea, but the founder looks like so much potential. We want to try it out with this person. But if your idea is already pretty developed and unique, probably with such popular programs like Antler, 500 startups, you can increase your chances.
Yeah, that's true, because you get the exposure to the network, to other potential investors, and also you get the other founders that you meet as well. And I think that pool of people that know about you has increased significantly with those bigger programs, of course, and on a global level, not just regional level. And of course, the names are more recognizable. So it's easier to have that conversation, even establish LinkedIn connections as well. When you say, go there somewhere, you see a person, you're like, oh, there's a kind of common denominator. You both gone through this accelerator, or you're both been part of it, or the person has been working for that accelerator or investor, but you've been through their program. Then you kind of say, hey, we share something common, so let's connect. So yeah, absolutely.
I think we covered a lot now about how to find and apply to accelerator programs. Is there anything else you would recommend to founders that you haven't mentioned so far?
Yeah, I always think about the main thing, is the accelerator the right thing for you to go through, and what basically are you getting out of it? I think that's the most important thing, is that because usually it's very easy to get lost in that kind of, I'd say, hype in saying, oh, it's going to be a great experience. But then you end up understanding that, okay, it requires certain kind of commitments. You have to attend certain sessions there. You have to be maybe physically present in that location. Maybe you have to travel geographically somewhere to another part of the world to be there. Is there financial support available for that, right? How are you going to live there in that place? What happens after that program? Like, all these nuances you have to consider, right? Not only the fact that, oh, it's a good idea to apply there, right? And if you weigh in on all those factors and decide that at that point, this is the best choice, I would definitely advise to go through it, especially if you think you're lacking skills in certain areas, or you think you can learn something new, or you're not sure that you're doing the certain things right. A good accelerator can really give you the right kind of mentorship, advice, and consulting that I've gotten absolutely as well from accelerators like 500, for instance, or that amazing, outstanding mentors. These are the things you should definitely consider.
Your current startup could be interesting for some of our audiences. Could you please explain it?
Like I briefly mentioned, and also in the introduction, is that our platform enables other businesses to kind of come and build these verifiable trust ecosystems for themselves. So let's say, just a very simple example, if they want to build a passwordless authentication solution for their users, so they can come and use our tools to build that very quickly and easily. But if they need to build a product that validates certain data, let's say a validity of like an insurance claim with a digitally scannable QR code, or like in a digital wallet, for instance, there would be a credential that verifies that. So these are just a couple of examples, that they can just come and build without needing to get involved into technical kind of long conversations with outsourced businesses and basically having multiple calls and waiting 6-12 months until it's ready. So if that's something that business is in need, and with all these regulations now around the world changing, that this is kind of starting to affect even small businesses, make sure that, the data is safe and you provide these opportunities to use, newest solutions like digital wallets or mobile wallets, then we're here to facilitate that and help them.
What would you like the audience to do, to visit your website or to connect with you on LinkedIn?
Yeah, so please connect with me on LinkedIn. Absolutely. I'm always very open to that. I'm quite actively there involved. And of course, yes, on our website, there's an opportunity to start and use us via a 30-day trial, so we can start build something on your own. And as a non-technical founder can tell you that don't worry, if technical skills are not there, you can easily start going through the API documents and build something on your own very quickly and easily. So don't be discouraged by that. And yeah, once you run something, you can feel free to have a call with us and we can see how we can scale your solutions and your builds.
We will add all the links in the description below. Thank you so much, Valdis. It was very useful and very interesting.
Thank you, Wilhelm. That was a pleasure to be here. And that was great questions. And I hope that more people get a chance to apply to amazing accelerators and business community grows globally because of this conversation.
I hope so too. Bye-bye.
Bye.